Think about the last person you couldn't stop thinking about. Maybe they were a little distant, hard to read, didn't text back right away. Somehow that made you want them more, not less. More. Why does that happen? Why does the human brain treat unavailability like a magnet? In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact psychology behind why we chase what we can't have, and more importantly, what it's doing to your mind, your relationships, and your life. Stay with me, because this might be the most honest thing you've ever heard about desire. Welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome. This channel is dedicated to understanding the hidden forces that drive human behavior. Today we're diving deep into one of the most universally felt yet rarely understood psychological phenomena, the pull of what we cannot have. We've all been there. The job that rejected us suddenly feels like the dream job. The person who doesn't reply feels irresistible. The item that sold out seems like the only one we ever really wanted. This isn't weakness. It's not neediness. It's wiring. It's deep, ancient, evolutionary wiring. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why it happens, psychological concepts behind it, and how to use this knowledge to make better decisions in love, in life, and in everything in between. Let's get into it. Section 1. The brain on desire, what neuroscience reveals. Let's start with the brain. Inside your skull, there's a tiny area called the nucleus accumbens. It's your brain's reward center, and it runs almost entirely on a chemical called dopamine. Now here's what most people get wrong about dopamine. They think dopamine is released when we get something pleasurable. But that's not entirely true. Research from neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz showed that dopamine spikes the most during the anticipation of a reward, not the reward itself. In other words, your brain gets high on the chase. When something is uncertain, when you don't know if you'll get it, dopamine floods your system in massive waves. This keeps you focused, motivated, and yes, obsessed. This is why slot machines are so addictive. You don't win every time. In fact, you lose most of the time. But that unpredictability, that's dopamine gold. And now think about a person who doesn't respond to your messages consistently. Sometimes they're warm, sometimes they're cold. You never quite know where you stand. To your brain, that's a slot machine with a heartbeat. Every text notification becomes a potential jackpot. Every reply a rush. Every silence a reason to keep pulling the lever. This is the neuroscience of desire. It's more powerful than most people realize. Section 2. The scarcity principle. Why rare means valuable. Now let's talk about something that marketers have known for decades and that psychologists have studied for just as long. It's called the scarcity principle. In 1975, psychologist Stephen Werkel ran an infamous experiment. He gave participants 2 jars of cookies, identical cookies, from the same batch. One jar had 10 cookies, the other had only 2. People consistently rated the cookies from the near-empty jar as more desirable, tastier, more valuable. Same cookie, different perception. Why? Because scarcity signals value. Our brains evolved in environments where rare things were often important. Rare food, rare shelter, rare mates. So we're hardwired to assign more importance to things that seem hard to get. This extends directly to human relationships. When someone seems like everyone wants them, we want them too. When someone is easily available, always there, always responsive, we often take them for granted. But the person who's a little mysterious, who has their own life, their own world that doesn't revolve around you, they feel rare. And rare feels valuable. Psychologists call this reactance. The more you feel something might be taken away or is out of reach, the more desperately you want it. It's not rational, it's ancient, and it operates entirely below your conscious awareness. Section 3. The Romeo and Juliet effect. Obstacles intensify desire. In 1972, psychologists Richard Driscoll, Keith Davis, and Milton Lippitz studied young couples. They noticed something extraordinary. The more parental interference the couple faced, the more people tried to keep them apart, the more intensely the couples reported being in love. They called it the Romeo and Juliet effect. Think about it. Shakespeare didn't write a tragedy about 2 teenagers who had easy access to each other and totally supportive families. That's not a story anyone wants to watch. Barriers. Obstacles. Forbidden love. That's the stuff that burns itself into our consciousness for 500 years. And here's why. When we're told we can't have something, our psychological reactance kicks into overdrive. We want it more. We fight for it harder. We build entire fantasies around it. The obstacle doesn't just make us want the thing, it makes us believe the thing must be extraordinarily worth having. Otherwise, why would we be working so hard? This is the brain justifying its own obsession. And it does it so smoothly, so quietly, that most people never notice it's happening. You're not chasing the person, you're chasing the story. Your brain built around the person. Section 4. Idealization. We fall for the fantasy. It's not the reality. Here's the dark psychological truth that almost no one talks about. When someone is unavailable, when we only get partial information about them, our imagination fills in the gaps. Our imagination is generous, kind. It gives them every quality we desire. They're funny, they're deep, they understand us. They would be perfect if only we could have them. But here's the brutal reality. We don't know that. We're not in love with a person. We're in love with a projection. A fantasy built from fragments and longing. Psychologists call this idealization, and it's most powerful when access is limited. Think about a celebrity crush. You've never had a bad conversation with them. You've never seen them grumpy in the morning or annoying about the dishes. Of course, they seem perfect. You only see the highlight reel. The same thing happens with real people who keep you at arm's length. You get their best moments, their curated version, and your brain constructs the rest. The more available someone becomes, the more real they become. And real means complex. Real means imperfect. Real means human. The fantasy collapses when the person becomes fully, genuinely present. And that's when the spark often dies, not because they changed, but because the mystery did. Section 5. Self-worth and the validation trap. Now we get to the layer that runs deepest. For many people, chasing the unavailable isn't really about the other person at all. It's about self-worth. Here's how it works psychologically. When someone doesn't choose us, when they keep us at a distance, it can activate a deep, often unconscious belief. I'm not enough. And so the chase becomes about proving that belief wrong. If I can just get them to want me, if I can just win their approval, then I'll finally know I'm worthy. The unavailable person becomes a test, a measuring stick, a mirror for our own insecurities. Therapists call this an anxious attachment pattern. It often develops in childhood, when love was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, and the lesson learned was, love is something you have to earn, not something you're given freely. So as adults, consistent, available love can actually feel uncomfortable. It's too easy, suspicious. We think if they're this available, maybe they're not worth much. But the person who keeps us guessing, that feels like home, familiar. Like love is supposed to feel based on what we learned love was. This is one of the most important patterns to recognize in your own life, because until you do, you'll keep repeating it. Section 6. How to break the cycle. So now you understand the psychology. But knowledge isn't freedom, not by itself. So let's talk about what to actually do. Step 1. Name what's happening. And next time you find yourself obsessing over someone unavailable, pause. So, say it out loud or write it down. My brain is in a dopamine chase loop. This feeling is neurochemical, not truth. Naming it breaks the spell, not completely, but enough to create a gap between feeling and action. Step 2. Examine the fantasy. Ask yourself, what do I actually know about this person? What am I filling in with my imagination? If I had full access to them every boring Tuesday, every bad mood, every flaw, would I still feel this intensity? Often the answer is no. You're in love with a projection. Projections can't hurt you the way people can. Step 3. Investigate the origin. Ask yourself, does this dynamic feel familiar? Have I been here before? What does this remind me of from childhood? Understanding the roots doesn't fix everything, but stops the pattern from operating invisibly. Step 4. Practice tolerance for the available. Make a conscious effort to notice and appreciate consistency. When someone texts back reliably, when someone shows up fully, lean into that instead of dismissing it. Availability is not the same as desperation. Consistency is not the same as boring. Your nervous system just needs time to learn that. Step 5. Rebuild self-validation. The deepest work is this. Stop making your worth contingent on someone else's attention. Therapy, journaling, coaching, community, whatever works for you. The goal is to become someone who doesn't need the unavailable to feel worthy. Because when you're no longer starving for approval, the unavailable suddenly lose their power, and the available become beautiful. There's an old metaphor about a moth and a flame. The moth is drawn to the light compulsively, completely, even at the cost of its own life. It doesn't want to get burned. It just can't look away. A long time, people use this image to talk about obsessive love. Romantic, almost. The idea that desire is dangerous but beautiful. But here's the thing about moths. They're not actually drawn to flames. They're drawn to the moon. The flame just mimics moonlight. And the moth, evolutionarily wired to navigate by celestial light, gets confused and locks in. It dies, chasing a counterfeit. And that's what the psychology of unavailability does to us. It offers a counterfeit moon. A false signal that mimics the genuine deep pull of real connection, real love, real worth. We circle it closer and closer, calling it passion, calling it fate, calling it love. But the moon is still out there, steady, patient, real. The question is whether you're willing to stop chasing the flame long enough to find it. So there you have it, the full psychology of why we chase what we can't have. From dopamine and the scarcity effect, to idealization, attachment wounds, and the path forward. If this video gave you even one moment of clarity about yourself or your relationships, that's a win. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Drop in the comments. Have you ever chased someone unavailable? What made you realize it? I read every comment. And if you want to go deeper into the psychology of relationships, self-worth, and human behavior, subscribe. New videos every week. No fluff. It's just real psychology that actually helps. Until next time, take care of your mind. It's the only one you've got.